Okay, so here are the earnings for our upcoming 2 weeks. And we see that we have some big names in quantum that are reporting. So we have IonQ, D-Wave, Rigetti, Arqit, and I believe I did do some research on this, the mystical horse, QBTS. I think TradingView has this wrong. I don't think they're reporting until June. Could be wrong. And then SkyWater as well. So we're going to take a look at earnings previews, financial health, and a variety of other things. We got a lot to cover. I'm going to try to do this as efficiently as possible. Let's jump right in. All right, guys, so I have the chip fabricator for D-Wave, SkyWater, pulled up here, and they have an interesting story. SkyWater is a onshore chip fabricator. The Zacks consensus estimate for first quarter 2025 revenues is pegged at 61.5 million, suggesting a 23.3% year-over-year decline. So is SkyWater, the common stock, trading at $7.02 today. Let's look at some of the valuation and financial health. So performance wise, we've seen revenue in Q4 of 23 at 80 million, 94 million, 93 million. And we've actually seen a regression in profitability, in total revenue. Valuation, price to sales, revenue to profit conversion. And then earnings wise, they've surprised in some of the quarters in 24. So will they surprise again? Will SkyWater be able to beat or guide for higher? Now, I'm going to be honest with you all. I don't know enough about the company to tell you if they're in a position to beat on their earnings. We can look back at the last earnings, which was February, and they did surprise both on revenue and in earnings. However, the stock has sold off. If we look all the way back to December of 24, this is exactly coinciding with the Google Willow and quantum stock pump. And when the market was doing really good. So this ripped all the way up to a $19 price point, and we're sitting at $7. So it looks to me like SkyWater's potentially negative forecast is already priced in the stock. So any sort of upward movement from here, any sort of surprise, any sort of beat or raise of guidance should bode well for SkyWater. And if we look at the all-time chart for SkyWater, we see that a couple times we've hit the $17, $18 price point. And if we go all the way back to when the company first got on the exchange, it was actually up at 36, 37. So there's certainly a lot of room for it to grow. If we just map out a bear case and bull case, we could see after earnings in a bull case, probably hit some resistance at 8, hit some resistance at 9, and it could continue up. In a bear case, if they are not doing so well financially, or they're continuing to guide for less, we could see it move down. And our next level of support is at this $5 roughly. So keep your eye on SkyWater. I have opened a position in SkyWater because of their connection to D-Wave, and I think it's an interesting play for, especially in the environment we are in with the pressure to move a lot of manufacturing and that type of thing back onshore. So we'll keep an eye on that. All right, let's take a look at IonQ. So IonQ beat analysts' revenue expectations by 15% last quarter, reporting revenues of 11.71 million, up from 91.8% on year. It was a slower quarter for the company with a significant miss on EPS. So I do remember IonQ didn't have the best earnings and the stock went down after the last quarter. And we'll look at that in the chart. Let's look at this Forbes article. How will IonQ stock react to its upcoming earnings? So when positive, the median one-day return has been a substantial 21% with a maximum of 34%. Conversely, in negative, one-day returns have been between -5 and -16%. They also give some historical returns. So if we see IonQ have a nice earnings, then we could see something like these 1-day, 5-day, and 21-day returns. If they miss, we could see something like this. So IonQ is currently trading at 28.74. It hasn't really started running this week in the market. I did open up Profit Viz here. I really do like there's a lot of things to be optimistic about with IonQ. So one thing would be revenue seems to be healthy and moving up, and that's always good to see in the quantum stocks. We don't like to see this net income considerable dive there. Operating income has been trending down. Free cash flow has been trending down. Operating cash flow looks like they made that a little healthier this last quarter. They have a lot of cost and OpEx, but one thing to be optimistic about is they do a pretty good job with their assets and not creating a bunch of liabilities. So we do like to see that. IonQ is a company with a CEO who's incredibly bullish on the company, and you love to see that. You love to see that the CEO is a strong leader and believes in the company and believes in the future of the company. And he said multiple times that IonQ could be the next NVIDIA. So take that for what you will. Right now, we see that the stock is trading at $28. We've talked about IonQ a few times on the channel recently, but we know that at one point, IonQ was hanging out at $55 when it was really in the nosebleeds. And then it kind of chopped around 44 to 36. It's recently had some good price movement. So there's definitely some rising support for IonQ. Now the question is, can it break through 30? And then the next stop would be 36. So in our bear case, we're going to see it reject and move down. We got lots of support at 24, at 20. In a bull case, we're going to see maybe some resistance at 30, maybe some resistance at 36, and then moving upward. So IonQ, a stock to keep on your radar. Earnings are coming up. All right, let's take a look at QBTS D-Wave. So examining the past 3 years reveals that the stock has experienced a positive one-day return in 64% of instances. These positive returns have had a median of 5% and a maximum of 111%. Despite financial metrics, quantum computing sector, including QBTS, has seen increased investor interest owing to its future prospects. So I want to pause here. Quantum companies at this point in time aren't cash cows. They're not pulling in money hand over fist. The market is forward looking, and this technology is certainly forward looking. So that all needs to be accounted for. And that's why you see price to sales. That's why you see the PE ratios so high with quantum stocks, because it's not what they're doing now. It's about getting in before the trend moves up, and then these stocks get a lot more expensive. So we have that from Forbes. We have D-Wave on their website announcing that they will release their financial results May 8th. So that's coming up. And if we look, let's look at a couple pieces of the equation here. So we don't like to see that the net income has gone down, but we know that D-Wave has done a lot of hiring and they're doing a lot of R&D. So they're getting more aggressive with their sales and their R&D and their research, and they're building a gate-based computer. So we could see some of that hitting the financials. We see that earnings has been mixed. So Q1, there was a surprise, and there was a miss, surprise, miss. They have guided for a bigger quarter this year. And that's one of the reasons the stock went up after their quantum supremacy claim, after the stock was halted on the NASDAQ. And we also know that the company has sold one of their systems, and that they have increasing client confidence, and it looks like they're starting to accelerate in growth. So to me, of all the companies, D-Wave is the most interesting, because what happens if they come out and they beat and raise? Quantum is a hot topic, and investors are looking to get in early. Look at what type of profit range you are in if you got into a stock like Palantir early, where that stock is now returning 1,500% for those who got in around $7 to $10. So if there is growth, a good growth story that's starting to develop here with D-Wave, this stock could respond in a very healthy way despite the macro. D-Wave could just start charting its own course in this market. So that's my ultra bull case. Let's look at this one last article from TipRanks. Analysts expect a big jump in Q1 2025 revenue of over 10 million, more than company made in all of last year. If D-Wave hits that target, it could be a turning point. Let's look at the chart. So we see that D-Wave has topped at $11, and it even touched just shy of $12 around the last earnings. So they had a surprise. They actually missed on earnings, but they guided for much more than the street was expecting, is what the story was. So now we see this clear rising support, this blue bar here. And we're kind of in this zone now where investors are waiting to see, can D-Wave deliver on their guidance, and if they can, are they going to raise the guidance? Are they going to keep their forward guidance? That remains to be seen. The stock is trading a little bit lower today because the whole market is down, but we see that there is potential upside. So let's look at the potential upside. So since we're currently around the $7 price point, there's a lot of levels to break through. So in a bear case, we have to get through all these levels. In a bull case, to really break into a situation where we were looking at last quarter. So we got a lot of resistance above. Now, in a bear case, let's say D-Wave misses, then we're going to see probably some pretty sharp sell-off. And if we go through this rising support, that's not good news. That's not good news for D-Wave stock price. So let's see how the chart responds in the ultra bull cases. Okay, and I want to do something here just for fun. Okay. So we have this sort of rising, this double top, okay? Now, I'm connecting those two, but really, since this is the only stock that has gone up since the quantum frenzy and then the quantum crash, we could see actually something that's more in line with its rising support, which would put the stock, this is the ultra bull scenario. So in an ultra bull case, what if the stock did something like this? 16 bucks. Is it out of the realm of possibility? What would that be? What would that move look like? 122% move. So that's the dream. That's the dream case. And then this previous nosebleed would start acting as support. That's what I would love to see out of D-Wave. And if they're able to deliver financially and with their positioning in this quantum market, that isn't so far out of the realm of possibility. So it's a bull case for sure. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but let's not rule it out. Okay, quickly, we're going to cover ARQQ and Rigetti and then call this a video. So on May 8th, they have a consensus EPS forecast of negative 0.85. So Arqit provided several key metrics and guidance for the company. Reported a revenue decline from 640 to 293. So this company doesn't make a lot of money at the moment. They have missed, met, and we don't know yet what's coming up. We have seen that ARQQ, which is a quantum cybersecurity company, has touched 24 in the last on momentum, and this was in March, and then sold off. If we look back 6 months, we see that ARQQ in the quantum frenzy actually hit 50. So a lot of the bad news has been priced in at this point. So it's really what your opinion is of the theme of quantum cybersecurity and the stock performance from this point. It's pretty clear to me that they've broke over this $10 point. So I think you can count on that support going forward for ARQQ. So in the bear case, we're just going to come down and bounce and hang around. Now, when the first quantum attack happens with a sufficiently powerful quantum computer, everyone's going to be freaking out, and they're going to go to companies like ARQQ and LAES, and the stock is going to irrationally climb. So I'm starting to build a position in ARQQ. I think it's attractive, and it has a lot of upside potential. So if we're to assume that it would recover at some point in the future, that's over 220% of upside. If we want to be more conservative and just look at recent highs, there's still 100% of upside. So if ARQQ can come out and beat and raise, there's some potential optimism there. All right, let's take a look at Rigetti Spaghetti, the one, the only. So Zacks has Rigetti expected to post a loss of 0.05 per share, indicating a change of 64 plus 64.3 from a year ago. Now, I believe Rigetti missed. Let's double check that. So Rigetti has had a long history of missing Wall Street expectations, both in revenue and on earnings. They met on earnings in August of 24 when they reported. So this is the thing I said in my previous Rigetti video, and I want to say now. Rigetti has a short interest of 22%. It's a stock. So people need to understand when they invest in Rigetti that you're still very, very early. And even the CEO is saying, this is an R&D company right now. We're not yet at the point of sales. So they're building their runway and their avenue to sales. And by the time they're starting to make those sales, the stock won't be at this price anymore. So a lot of that future potential is being priced in when you see these really high ratios, right? Like these price to sales. So we have a price to sales of 320. So the valuation doesn't meet the actual revenue that's coming in with Rigetti. It's very simple. So it's if you believe in the company, and if you believe in the long-term story of the way Rigetti is approaching quantum. I'm an investor in Rigetti. I hold a pretty sizable position. I believe in the long-term growth prospect. As far as the short-term trade, that it's hard to say. We know that Rigetti did touch 21.47, and it's really been range bound between $7 and $10. We've called out these levels before on the channel. We're down in the 7s and 10s again. If we want to really see if we have a good earnings, if Rigetti actually surprises Wall Street, then we could see Rigetti move with some momentum. It might hit its head on some of these resistances, but there's definitely upside potential. If we look back, let's see if it has a rising support, definitely has a rising support that we can draw out here. So if we go back, so that rising support, if that holds for Rigetti, then we should continue to see a slow trickle up. I don't have high expectations for Rigetti's earnings, to be honest. I don't have high expectations for any of these quantum companies, except with the exception of potentially D-Wave, since they've guided for much higher revenue than the same quarter last year. So with the quantum trade, it's always important to understand the risk that's associated with it, that these are companies that are still in the R&D development mode. And in the future, when they start getting the customers and they start pulling in more and more revenue, the stock price is going to go up exponentially, because this is a new technology and it has the ability to disrupt markets, has the potential to disrupt markets in the way we have always done things. So I'm pretty optimistic about IonQ and D-Wave. I'm neutral about SkyWater and Rigetti. And ARQQ, I have no idea, guys. I don't know. You tell me in the comments. Tell me what you think. Did I miss anything? It's possible. Definitely not an expert on all of these companies. That's one of the challenges of holding different investments and stocks, is it's just hard to know everything about all of them. So if there's anything I missed, leave it for the community in the comments. So there's a nice conversation below. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have a good day.